Before we continue this video, if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to leave a like and why not subscribe. Anyway, I hope you enjoy. Ubisoft doesn't get enough credit for their open worlds. There is a level of detail and focus on personality that can often be unmatched in their presentation. Now, putting up a Ubisoft open world game at face value is a totally different topic. You could possibly pull up Assassin's Creed Odyssey or any Far Cry game from the last 7 years and see it being drowned in clutter, with collectibles, climbables, and even outpostables. But what has become undeniable is that this style of open world game has come pretty tiresome. There is a clear call for change. People are sick of seeing these huge worlds become flooded and dotted with pointless things to do and to collect. Ubisoft seem to be the main culprit, at least the main punching bag for this topic, and maybe with great reason. But that's not what I want to talk about today. Despite the amount of truth there is to their flaws in game design, there's many situations where Ubisoft got it spot on, and I just want to talk about those today. Assassin's Creed is a series I have made many videos on, and I doubt this will be the last. But today I want to focus on not so much the identity or the characters or even the flaws. This franchise is known for doing many great things and many bad things, but it's undeniable that Assassin's Creed's time after time has brought its A game to the franchise when it comes to the setting of each entry. There is a beauty that comes with the Italian setting of Assassin's Creed 2, the world growing and showing artistic innovation at the height of the Great Renaissance era. Bustling cities like Venice and Florence make a perfect setting for a new young assassin to discover his destiny, growing to a man, and just like his close friend Leonardo da Vinci, reinvent the standards of what it means to be an assassin, and alongside reinvent the standards of what open world gaming could offer. Or Assassin's Creed 3 with the setting of the American Revolution, the British Redcoats versus the Americans who are just wanting to solidify their home and make it become a free nation without King George breathing down their necks. But heed not these rebels who scream revolution, because they too come with their own errors, and our character Connor Kenway or Rahana Tunagaden is caught in the middle of this divide. But not just physically with the war, but mentally as well. He is born from a British father and a native Mohican tribe woman. Connor finds himself in a narrative where he's learning about the world and how it's against his tribe, but he's also coming to understand what his family is and what it means to him on this journey of discovery. Connor's visual storytelling is one of the most effective in the franchise, and that divide between the country and that battle within himself is just reflected perfectly here. Every character alongside their timeline is drenched in themes, and you can see it being shown within the world, and I think Assassin's Creed and Ubisoft doesn't get enough credit for this effort alone. Now let me take a second to explain how I'm going to go about talking about this video. Not all games pulse inwards and reflect our characters. Games give us a protagonist and a wonderful realised world, show us how our protagonists are inspired by the world's cultures and ideas, almost like a pulse moving inwards towards us, the player. Placing Kratos in a totally new mythos, for example, Norse mythology, there will definitely be change. His new weapons mimic those of gods, his clothing has changed, he's even grown a beard. We see how the world has changed and affected Kratos. Placing Link, that we all know and love, in a world and a time that he isn't from, as us the player we can give him brand new technology and gadgets that he've never seen before. No longer does he look like the iconic elf boy from the woods in that green tunic, but instead he's learning and embracing something new with these brand new costumes and technology along the way. A lot of gaming worlds are like this, and it's completely understandable. It's the perfect way to make the player engage with the world and learn about their cultures by having the world itself do the talking, allowing you to get involved, see how this world has grown and hear the stories it wants to tell. It's that inward pulse and influence that these worlds have on us the player and our main protagonists, which tell so many great stories. But it isn't always the case with environmental storytelling. Effects can also be the opposite. That pulse can move outwards. Our characters' mindset and choices begin to take effect on the world around us. In Dishonored, Corvo has the choice to be a completely bloodthirsty killer, eradicating every single person he comes in contact with, leaving the streets full of flesh-eating rats and disease-ridden weepers. Guards are now on high alert and patrolling in the masses. While if you're good and decide to move in the shadows, never killing a single person, the streets will remain clear and the guards will be none the wiser to your presence. Even with games like Batman Arkham Asylum, how they reflect Batman's mentality, with Gotham changing from its neo-noir aesthetic into the Joker taking over all the adverts and even the architecture of the city, appearing whenever he can, showing a fast decline in Batman's sanity as Joker takes hold. And while I'm talking about sanity, let's not forget Eternal Darkness, possibly the most famous example of our character's sanity affecting environments around us and even the game's pause menu. It's this outward pulse that reflects and affects the world around us. And that's why I want to talk about Assassin's Creed Origins, and that's what makes it so special. So it's my pleasure today to introduce you to this week's video, as we search for those memories hidden in the sands.
My son, you wanted the stars.
We dance, and they die.
I thought Magi's was supposed to protect.
You have returned.
Can you just do what I say, please? Go! And here is your nobody!
What my daughter back!
I will destroy everything you stand for, Benedict. We cannot leave him here.
We could never have been. Everything has told us our love is
Don't know anything about this vault! Please leave my son out of this!
Requiescat in pace, Caesar.
Assassin's Creed Origins is a significant title in the franchise. It's the first biggest turn the games had ever seen, coming from the parkour-focused action-adventure games and becoming huge open-world RPGs akin to the likes of The Witcher. This, depending on the fan, was the birth of a new era, the beginning of the end, or the moment the franchise proved it could adapt and be saved. I was the latter, and I was fully into this idea from Ubisoft. No matter the fan though, we all agree on one thing. Assassin's Creed Origins is one of the best stories told in the franchise, and it's helped that it's led by maybe the best written and acted character, Bayek of Siwa. Bayek is a Medjay, commonly known as the last Medjay. Medjay were seen as both respected and feared throughout Egypt, split into groups or clans with different chiefs, leading in different regions. They acted as protectors and even a policing force that would help people in villages and put a stop to the terrible things that could happen out in the deserts, while of course obeying their own laws and their own creeds. Over time the Medjay became redundant. Historians are not clear why, if this is due to just changing beliefs or if their policing and protective roles over time just became redundant. But Bayek is the Medjay of Siwa and protecting it as such. He had a happy life in Siwa that we don't get to see much out of flashbacks set in 49 BC. Bayek is a loving and caring man with his wife Aya, who is from Alexandria, but moved to Siwa during her teens and never intended to fall in love with Bayek, having a child together and getting married. Their child was named Kemal. Despite Bayek's tough exterior, this child is exactly what he'd always wanted. Throughout the game he is a loving and caring person, especially around children, and it's clear to see why. He loved being a father, and he wanted to be a more loving and caring one than his own, who put Bayek through long and tough vigorous training to become the next town Medjay. Bayek would be less rough on his son, allowing him to train through his own life experiences, but also teach him those important lessons that are needed for when he grows up and becomes the Medjay himself. Kemal was the life and blood of Bayek, while Aya had her own dreams, wanting to return to Alexandria and continue her scholarship. One day while Bayek was out training his son, he is tricked into believing a child is in danger, and discovers mystery men in robes have come to the village, and in his duty as a Medjay he sends his son home, hoping that he would be safe so he could protect this child. Bayek furiously chased and fought for this child's freedom, to only be outnumbered and knocked out. He finds that him and Kemal have been kidnapped and are sealed near an ancient vault of the past civilization in the temple of Amun. These masked figures kidnapped Bayek because they believed him to be the legendary Medjay, and as being a Medjay of Siwa must understand how this vault works and how to open it, demanding that he uses the Apple of Eden as a key. Of course this is completely false, and Bayek has no idea what they're talking about, only being further enraged. With help from his son, he's luckily able to break from his bonds and try and take out a few of the masked men with his son's knife. He's once again outnumbered, and one of the men make him stumble, accidentally forcing Bayek to impale his own son's heart with that knife, killing him instantly in one of the most heartbreaking and well acted sequences I've seen in the franchise. Ezio, Connor, even Arno all saw their families killed by an enemy, killed and able to paint a picture for those who were responsible for the death of their loved ones. Meanwhile, Bayek ultimately felt like he was the one who murdered his own son, and that revenge and that hatred lingers in his mind, and it lingers in his world. The game pushes us forward 1 year after those events, 48 BCE. Yes, BCE clocks work backwards because this is before 0. Yeah. We find Bayek on a journey of vengeance. He left Siwa, abandoned the title of Medjay, exiled himself, and separated from his wife Aya, who's also still working undercover, planning her own assassinations for those who are responsible. She's working close with Cleopatra alongside Bayek, but still loves Bayek from afar, but needed to get away from the memories of Siwa, their son, and couldn't bear that anger and grief that Bayek had held onto so strongly. Origins shows us just how damaging the need of revenge is, not just to a single person, but how it can destroy an entire family, and creating cracks between the love of two people, and making it their own mission to take revenge on those who are responsible for what happened. There are glimmers and moments that we see these two remembering their love for each other, and even in some scenes opening up to the ways they were before, embracing each other, holding each other tight, but most ultimately they're both blinded for their need for revenge, and that's the heartbreaking story here. Bayek by far is the most deadly assassin just based on his rage alone, maybe only being challenged by Connor's brute strength. He will go as far as he needs to go to get to those who are responsible for his son's death. When assassins, or in this case hidden ones, kill their targets, we get moments of insight, whether it's a moment for our target to repent, a secret being learned, or even time for our character to take a personal moment to speak to them in their dying breaths. Bayek's were the first time we saw how our character's mind can really affect these outer body moments, with visions of his son often appearing, mocking him, haunting him, allowing him to hold on to that anger even further, and triggering him to take down the target in a final blow. I said earlier there's a lot of credit that Ubisoft doesn't get for its world, and Origins is just one of the best in the industry. Open worlds almost seem like a gamble. They almost seem like a way to invite you to a new universe. They want to entice you to explore and try every new thing they have to offer. Open worlds are freeing. They allow you to adventure and allow you to seek for mysteries hidden within the world itself. I enjoy that experience when I play an open world game. I enjoy being able to live and feel free inside these universes, but it's rare that we get a world that feels so horribly isolating and incredibly haunting. Assassin's Creed Origins Egypt is not just alive with colour and vibrant streets. It's not one about blending in the crowds and becoming invisible amongst the many. It's not even one riddled in conflict. Egypt in Origins is an isolating, haunting experience. Sure, there are villages and cities that at heart feel very Assassin's Creed, but it's not where this game wants to put its focus. It's out in the sweltering heats, the muggy temperatures of the swamps, and the darkness of forgotten hidden secrets. The atmosphere here is so thick, you could cut it with a butter knife. Ubisoft uses the audio of each desert with great effect. These places are barren and empty. There are pulsating sounds that grind the player's ear, and embracing exactly how Bayek is feeling. There are reversed whispers in the ear of the player. There's a heartbeat only pumping with anticipation. As you make your way through these deserts, nothing seems out of the ordinary until Bayek will have to traverse these huge hot areas, and there is plenty of time with him and his own thoughts, and there's no escaping that. Many people in deserts have died, become lost and gone insane just because of the power of mirages, caused by the heat in the air, and Bayek here, unfortunately, is no different. We make our way through these deserts either on horseback, camelback, but when you're out there lingering in the sun for long enough, the world begins to speak to you. Images of old men with staffs turning into snakes, trees growing into life, setting ablaze and then disappearing, fish falling from the skies holding on to its last breath, whispers of crowds drowning out your ears, the beautiful sound of water running and reminding you that there is none out here other than the salty dry drip from your brow. But there is one figure, one shadow that haunts the player, that haunts Bayek, a child, his son. Playing with flowers, walking at an impossible distance, haunting Bayek's every single reminding step. It's this little touch that makes these moments out here in Origins so special, with a blend of nauseating sound design, space-like pressure, and of course Kemu's vanishing spirit with every reach. We remember who we are, we remember exactly what our mission is, and we remember who is responsible. Just these little moments alone tell us exactly what Bayek is fighting for, what he truly believes. It shows that his son Kemu is his only goal. He's so heartbroken and holding on to that guilt that the spirit of his son continues to linger with him. Even when he's alone and furthest from man in the golden hot dunes of the desert, his guilt and his mind truly won't let him be at peace. The symbolism of each vision is of great interest too. The burning tree shows that he has this belief that he failed as a father, if he wasn't able to even keep a tree alive from burning as it grows. The flower blowing away in the wind shows us that loss of love and innocence which made his world so beautiful in the first place. Even that man with the cane shows you his new view on his religion and values, feeling betrayed by this figure as this cane turns into a snake, and snakes here are a major theme and symbolic towards the people who killed his son, and even symbolic towards himself, as the masked man said to him right before the incident.
The snake takes that as your answer.
Bayek holds on to this imagery of the snake because he possibly sees himself as the snake, alongside seeing his main goal and target as the snake itself. It's hard not to feel something while exploring the Egypt that Ubisoft has crafted. In some ways, it turns what is mostly known as an open world action adventure franchise into a deeply personal psychological action thriller game. There are themes of war, of death, suicide and failure that all come when you're exploring this desert, and it's all 100% entirely unscripted. It allows for our character's mind and mentality to have an effect on the world and influence our surroundings, other than the surroundings influencing us. Scale is very important in the latest entries of the Assassin's Creed franchise. Origins, Odyssey and Valhalla are enormous in scale. But of course in Origins, as it's the start of this newer trend, it tends to lend itself rightly so and adds to the narrative being told. Bayek, like many people in his time period, is a strong believer of the gods and the greater powers that control, create, take and belittle his very human existence. From the mountain at the ends of the earth, the life that is given and taken, and the waters that quench the thirst of man, and the winds that shift the pollen in the spring, Bayek's world, existence and humanity in his view are nothing more but mere servants to his gods. He often went stargazing with his son, teaching him everything he knew about the gods, teaching him about whatever the gods did, the impossibilities of the infinity, just how small and minuscule we are as an existence compared to them. When Kemu is killed, he never lost his faith in the gods, but he knew he now had a larger purpose in this world that he needed to fulfill. There is a theme of growing into something larger than yourself that carries weight with both Aya and Bayek's journey into creating essentially what becomes the Assassin's Creed. The world is designed to belittle the players in its wonders, but it isn't just for spectacle, but adds to the narrative that is being told, and it shows every time we climb a great pyramid, scale up the side of an incredible mountain, take down huge elephants, or even battle visions of those very same gods, we understand how important it is that Bayek must defy the gods he so heavily believed in, just to show how far he's willing to go to fulfill his destiny and to get revenge for his son's death. This also reflects and is a prominent theme and feeling in the very first Assassin's Creed game. Altair's faith and trust and even his own beliefs are put against him, and he must defy and uncover the truth behind his own faith and learn to accept there is more to be an assassin than is first shown to him and us as the player. Though this isn't presented through the mindset of Altair, so the world itself doesn't necessarily change actively or even grow with his descending distrust of the Creed, it's that growing tension of war in his country and the rise of something new and frightening that mimics his own thoughts and opinions on his belief system and creed. And so too does it show how Altair must face his distrust in the Creed and go against those who once taught him everything he knew. So much of this story is Bayek going on a personal journey, learning that not just one man was the reason for his son's death, but instead it was an entire belief system, a order, a group of people who believed in their own greed for the greater good. And when learning that it wasn't just a single man, but instead a collective order, him and Aya must too create an order and a mindset to make sure the same thing that happened to their son never happens again. Bayek and Aya ultimately make a choice, much like the game's visual narrative teaches us. It's a decision to become something much larger than yourself, to split apart forever, create new lives and ideals for themselves, and understand and learn they are brand new people who will never be the same again, and understand that even after their lives, when they're dead and gone, they need to become a symbol for others to believe in and remain an unforgotten presence throughout history. Much like they believe in the symbol of their gods, much like the mirages in the desert reminded Bayek of what he'd lost and his thirst for revenge, they need to become a symbol for something that is impossible to kill. I love the way how we have such an internal raw experience that projects its own feelings into this game's open world. They convey so much sadness, anger, and even the willpower of one character with just a turn of the wind. Of course here there is plenty Assassin's Creed business as normal with Bayek, as he's surrounded by civilians and will be distracted by the usual Assassin's Creed objective, sneaking into bases, climbing up buildings and diving off the highest reaches, and of course creating the path for the hidden ones with his wife. But it's this contrast that allows the game to slip into a chilling, frightening open world that many have taken for granted and many won't even experience just for namesake alone. And now I can imagine you're probably wondering why I went into so much depth just to talk about a drip of water in an ocean of a game that is Assassin's Creed Origins. But I mean, it's an Assassin's Creed game that came out in 2017, and that's why this is very important. We've come miles away from that point, and yet we haven't even seen potentially anything that mimics this kind of open world character interaction. The narratives being told through the eyes of Cassandra or Eivor lend themselves to this real-time narrative structure, but it's never been seen again. Especially with Eivor, they have this narrative with Odin, where we could have seen Odin as a crow hiding or lurking in the dark woods of Britain as Eivor explores the world. It could have been a nice little feature, and it would have been a little haunting nod to what was to come. Open worlds should service more than just as a playground for our main protagonist. We have seen the biggest and the best the industry has to offer, but now there is a time where we have to begin to merge real-time and ever-changing experiences to allow the world to tell its own story to the player through the eyes of our main protagonists. Origins is special because it's just a one-off cool idea to play with these hallucinations, but maybe there's something more to it, and there's something that maybe this series could truly dive into. To heavily date this video, maybe we'll see this kind of thing with Basim in the up-and-coming Assassin's Creed. Basim could potentially be haunted by an image of a wolf or a dark figure that mimics Loki, stalking him on his journey and taking over his mind slowly, and growing into the Basim that we get to meet in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Basim and Bayek seem to actually have a lot in common in that field, learning the right from wrong from their previous lives and mistakes, and embodying a totally new personality to unforeseen circumstances, and their past lives only being drowned and taken away from the confusion between what is real and what is only a mirage. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, I'll see you at the next checkpoints Bye!